Shift happens, sometimes by choice, sometimes by circumstance. And when it does, you have two options. You can either cling to the life you've outgrown or step into the version of you that knows she's meant for more. I'm Gialacqua, trauma-informed empowerment coach and founder of Radical Prioritization. Welcome to What the Shift, the podcast for women who've outgrown the life they've built and are ready to create one that finally fits. Here we get real about the shifts that change everything: identity shifts, career pivots, relationship resets, mindset breakthroughs, and learning how to finally release what's holding you back. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just be ready for what's next. It's time to shift. If you feel like life is shifting, you're in the right place. I'm Gialacqua, and this is What the Shift. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to Trevor Hanson. Trevor is a licensed therapist and coach whose journey from adversity to fulfillment inspires thousands. After facing a series of setbacks, including a broken jaw, a toxic relationship, and a corporate layoff from Tesla, Trevor found himself at a crossroads. Seeking direction, he turned to therapy, a decision that transformed his life and took him on a new path as a therapist and coach. Today, he's a husband and father, and he also inspires and guides his more than 500,000 followers online through their own challenges. With a master's in marriage and family therapy and expertise in emotionally focused therapy and trauma-focused approaches, Trevor equips his clients with the tools to overcome obstacles and embrace what truly matters. Trevor, welcome to the show. So happy to have you with us today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
So,
I will say I sound a little funny today because I'm a little sick, so I got like this like DJ voice today, which
oh,
is like either good or bad. I don't know. So if you catch me sipping on some like ginger honey tea, that's what's going on. And if I sound a little stuffy, it's because I am. So thanks for
yeah,
having me despite oh man, as I'm talking, I'm coughing, despite my current status.
it works. It works for you. Thanks for being here, even though you're under the weather. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So you tell us you lived through a broken jaw, a toxic relationship, and you walked away from Tesla and pivoted. You had a shift, a major shift in your life.
Yeah.
How would you describe the breaking point for you that pushed you to say, this isn't working?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's quite a few things that kind of added up or led up to that point, right? And
Sure.
then I think sometimes adversity or the challenges that we face kind of force us in the right direction. There, where previously we've been too stubborn to go, or maybe unaware. And I think I was both, maybe a little bit stubborn, a little bit fearful and unaware. I think is the combination. And I think most of my life I struggled with not necessarily feeling deep down like I was good enough. Like I think on paper I could point to like my resume, the things I was doing and feel pretty proud of that. But there was still like this emotional part of me that almost disregarded all of it. It's like, no, 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 that doesn't matter. Like you still aren't quite enough. Or there was like a fear that I wouldn't be a good enough. And there's a slight difference, right? There's like the belief that you aren't, or maybe the fear that it's possible that you're not quite good enough. Like others could reject you or leave you. Kind of this. It sounds more dramatic than it's supposed to be, I guess. But like this fear of like abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of losing that connection with somebody else because they've deemed me unworthy of being in their life. And I think even leading up to my career at Tesla, I graduated from this little tiny university in Hawaii called BYU Hawaii. There's like BYU Provo, which everybody knows about, and they got a big football team and everything else. But then there's BYU Hawaii, and I graduated from there, went and started working at Tesla, and that in itself was one of the things that I think I did. A, it was a good decision, but B, it was like I think I was just trying to prove like, hey, look at me. Like I'm good enough. I got this really cool job at this really cool company. Like I must be valuable. And I think that kind of like helped to pad my bit of my insecurity or my fragile ego in a sense. And I was there for a while. And while I was working there, I had met this girl, and she seemed to be everything that I think I wanted, but also everything that I thought everybody else would think is amazing, right? Like, so like when I would go out with her or what I would talk about her, I felt as if like, oh, I'm getting my value because of even the person who chose me. Like, look, I am good enough, right? It's like I almost wanted to go back to like all the girls in like high school and like be like, hey, look at this. Like, see what you missed out on, right? But it was I think a lot of it was fueled by just this like insecurity, not necessarily knowing that I was enough and that I didn't need this particular type of person or girl or whatever else to like give me that validation and prove that it was true. And so I that relationship was just so real toxic. I mean, she had her own fears and insecurities, which I think we all do, right? We grow up in households that aren't perfect. And from those households, we are left with imperfect beliefs about ourselves, such as love can't be trusted, or others are going to leave, or I have to be perfect in order to be enough. And it's some pretty heavy beliefs that maybe we carry around that limit us. And she had her own, probably stronger than me, a lot stronger than me actually, where there was this deep fear of betrayal. And it got so bad that there was a lot of like controlling behavior. Like I wasn't able to go and see certain friends. I like we'd go out in public and I'd look at the floor because she's always accusing me of checking somebody out, and it would just lead to conflict and fighting because I was getting burnt out. I was just saying yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. I was just staying and staying and staying, trying to please her in order to keep what I thought was so rare and so scarce, which was a person who deemed that I was good enough to be with. And so I didn't want to lose it. And so I just kept fighting for it. And as I kept fighting for it, I built more and more resentment. And then when you do that, no matter how much you care about the other person, eventually unusual circumstances bring out unusual behavior in a person. And I saw that in me. Lost my mind. She lost her mind. It didn't end nicely, ended in hurtful words and all sorts of just chaos that I'll spare you. And to top it all off, well, I forgot to mention, around that same time, I got laid off from Tesla. There was a big corporate layoff. And so I all of a sudden didn't have a job, and the relationship just blew up in my face with a lot of kind of subsequent trauma that came with it, like nightmares almost every night because of it. And to top it all off, I had a broken jaw. I got in a skiing accident. Somebody collided with me up on the hill, and I got life flighted out from Solitude Mountain Resort in Utah. So it was like every bit of me felt broken. Like the path for a career seemed all of a sudden like ambiguous and unknown. And the hopes that I had there were gone. And the hopes for a relationship, which is the other area of my life that I really cared about, gone. The jaw was honestly the least of my problems, but it was the most visible of my problems. People would like see me at church and things like, hey, how are you healing? How are you feeling? And when they would ask that, it was almost comforting in a way because like it felt as if they were asking about my heart, but they weren't. They were asking about my jaw because it was swollen and obvious, and they knew that I had been wrecked in this accident. And so it was just all of this combination. And I'm realizing that not all of these problems came because of the insecurity, but a lot of them did, specifically the relationship problems. You can hear how it kept me stuck in that relationship when it wasn't really good for me, but the fear kept me locked up. So the short version of this, because I'm talking for so long here, is that I did seek out some help. It took longer to do my healing than I would like for other people to experience. And so that's kind of part of the mission now, is to help people accelerate the process of becoming what I would, if we use like a term around this, become securely attached. Like because when you are secure, or you're what we call securely attached, your relationships are much more healthy. I believe it is the pivotal point that changes everything in any and every relationship. When we act from insecurity, that's when we're defensive, that's when we're shutting down, that's when we're critical, that's when we're self-protective. Almost every failure in human relationships comes down to the big label of insecurity. And so my goal is to help people become secure. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
That's an incredible story, and it sounds like all of those things happened either simultaneously or sequentially, but in very close proximity, that it was this big
Yeah.
wake-up call.
Yeah, pretty much
Yeah.
simultaneous.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all happened at the exact same time. Yeah.
Yep. It's funny how life works, right?
Yeah.
You touched upon the fear component, which we all carry with us, fear of rejection, abandonment, right?
Yeah.
And how that shows up in our life. You also touched upon something that I think so many high achieving women and men experience, which is
Mhm.
outwardly successful. Life looks great on paper, checked all the boxes, career, title, house,
Yeah.
spouse, kids, right? White picket fence, the dog, you name it, the zip
Yeah.
code. Internally struggling with that, ultimately it's self-worth,
Yeah.
and trying to prove our worth, and who are we proving it to? And so
Mhm.
I would love, from your perspective, what shifted for you, what shifted inside of you when you stopped proving your worth?
Yeah. So when I there's a lot of shifts that needed to happen, and maybe I'll describe a little bit of the method to help give a clear picture on how we get there. Because I think if we understand the method, then we can better understand the result and what comes from that. So I was sitting in Chick-fil-A one day, just eating the Lord's chicken, as they might call it. And I'm on a break from work, and I look over and I'm seeing this dad and this daughter. And the daughter is 4 years old, probably, and she's doing the routine where she runs barefoot to dad, gets a bite, and then bolts for the playground. And she keeps doing this. She's getting to the point where she's like sweating. She's having a great time. Like, it's the perfect scenario for a 4-year-old, right? Chick-fil-A chicken and a playground, back and forth. Amazing. And it gets to that point in every 4-year-old's day that is the worst point ever, which is we got to go home. And so dad lets her know, hey, we got to go. It's time. We got to go do some other things today. And she starts to have these irrational beliefs and reactions. Of course she does. She's 4 years old. Why wouldn't she? That's how she's built. It's supposed to be that way. So she starts saying things out loud that reflect her irrational beliefs, such as, Dad, we're never coming back. Huh. Okay. That's probably not true, but she feels like it is. And then there's another where she says, Dad, you're being so mean. Well, of course, it makes sense that she would feel that way. It's not really true. And I'm, you know, and just she kept kind of saying things like this, but we'll take those two as an example.
Mhm.
And you know what dad did? He did the coolest thing in the world. He didn't grab her by the wrist and just rip her out of the store, which we sometimes see people do. He kind of leans over. So he's right there on her level and he goes, Oh my gosh, you feel like we're never coming back, huh? And she's like, yeah. She's starting to already feel understood because he's just repeating what she said. And he goes, oh man, yeah. And that would be really scary because you love it here, don't you? Yeah. And like kind of like the choked up, yeah, that a little kid can say where they're like starting to feel understood and it's so freaking cute. She's doing that. And
Mhm.
slowly she's building some trust with dad because dad's showing, I get you. And he just validates the heck out of her. He says, oh, I'm so sorry. That would be really scary. You definitely want to come back here, and I know that. And then when he extends the invitation to reveal truth to her, she's willing to hear it. He says, well, can I tell you something that might help you? And so she's like, okay, yeah, like I'm ready to hear this because dad's already on my side. And he says, well, we come back all the time, and we are going to come back. Remember how every time your cousin has a soccer game, we come here and we eat after with everybody else? And she's starting to kind of piece it together, and her rational brain is starting to come online with dad's help. She's like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And he goes to the other belief, dad's being so mean. I get why you feel that way. Validates the same kind of way. But he also reveals truth to her, comforting truth. He says, Dad doesn't want to be mean to you. He loves you. We want to go home and see mom. She just texted me. She said that she's excited to see us. Do you want to go see her? And all of a sudden she realizes, wait, dad's on my team. He's protecting me. He wants me to go see my mama. That's amazing. And you got your princess bed at home and you can't sleep here on these hard chairs. They're not very comfortable. And she kind of laughs and realizes, wow, dad has comforting truth and an ability to help me that I do not have. She's not thinking that complex, but that's kind of what's going on for her deep down in there. And so she walks off with dad and without a fight, and it's comfortable. She feels safe. She feels secure. And she moves into the next part of her life successfully. And what I realized for that interaction is that all of us have the 4-year-old inside. And the 4-year-old is that version of us that still feels afraid that other people are going to leave. All of us have this 4-year-old inside of us. And it's that voice in our head that tells us that other people don't like us or that we need to be perfect in order to be enough. It's the one that tells us to obsess over our appearance or obsess over our career, even for the validation, for somebody telling us, no, I love you, you're safe. Keeping people close is the job of what we call the inner child. And it's created through early experiences. Maybe we heard mom and dad fighting in the other room and we felt like it was our fault every single time. Or maybe we were the golden child and we felt like this anxiety to keep that role. And so now we have this anxiety to keep everybody else happy. Or maybe we suffered like significant abuse, like that could have happened too. Or it could even been just that mom was really anxious, or dad, and difficult to connect with because they were so wrapped up in their own anxiety
Mhm.
that we felt like we had to put on a big show in order to make them happy, to get the attention and love and approval that we need. And so as I started doing my work, I started to realize my job is to find, nurture, gain trust with, and heal the inner child part of me. That part of me that still has irrational thoughts, fears, and beliefs that don't actually match reality. And that was one of the greatest catalysts that moved me into the shift of healing and then what comes after.
That's incredible. I love the story of the little 4-year-old girl, and it's true. We all have the little 4-year-old inside of us. So I think the quicker we can acknowledge that he or she is there, right, and
Yeah.
listen to what he or she is saying, the faster. And you talk
Yeah.
about openly about your journey with anxious attachment, and just for our
Yeah.
listeners who may not be as familiar, there's 4 different styles of attachment, right? There's
Yeah.
secure, generally speaking, secure, avoidant, disorganized, and then there's anxious. So,
Yeah.
how do you know which attachment style you are?
Yeah. Well, I can describe them for you. And it's basically the thing that I don't feel like we talk a lot about or we hear a lot about when people are discussing attachment styles like online, which it's become pretty popular. I can't remember his name. I don't remember his last name. Wrote the book Attached, and then everybody all of a sudden was exposed to attachment theory. But it's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
John Bowlby was actually the one who founded the idea of attachment theory. But it's this idea that um, if we trust that love is plentiful, that we can access it, that people are going to be there for us, if we're okay when our partner has a bad day and we don't blame ourselves or get really worried that they're going to be mad at us, if we are, content with shifts and changes in relationships, something like a breakup could still be hard, but a securely attached person is going to be okay. They're going to have a hopeful vision of the future, knowing that just because there was a breakup doesn't mean that I'm not good enough. It doesn't mean that I will never find love again. There's no anxiety behind love. And so that's the secure attachment. And that's kind of the goal, because when you're not anxious, then you are not protecting yourself. And when you're not protecting yourself, and I'm talking about negative protection that creates negative outcomes, and we can talk about like a cycle that helps us illustrate that. But when you're in self-protection mode, like I mentioned earlier, you usually are getting defensive, you're getting critical of what your partner's doing because you need them to change it in order for you to feel safe. And a lot of things kind of just start to go out the window, and a lot of the problems then follow. And so the goal is securely attached, um, as marked by confidence, a sense of calm, hopefulness. The anxiously attached are those who have a fear of abandonment, a fear of rejection at its core. And usually there's some sort of negative beliefs about yourself that go along with an anxious attachment as well. But the anxiously attached, it's really just how they cope with it. What makes it the anxious is just how they respond. So they respond through trying to almost force connection, right? This is the person who's really anxious about not getting that text back, and they're overthinking, like trying to figure out, okay, how do I get them to text me back? What's a way that I can do this? Like maybe I'm going to go look at their Instagram story, see if they're doing something else and ignoring me, or maybe I just get so anxious that I send them like another text and I double text them instead of just waiting for the conversation to continue. Or they might ask for commitment pretty early in the relationship when the relationship's not quite ready for commitment. In a relationship, the anxiously attached, they're more likely to kind of pursue their partner when it comes to conflict. Like, I can't go to bed till we talk about this. And they often approach their partner with a bit more criticism and judgment in their language. It's the you nevers and the you always. You never show up for me. You always make me feel like I'm not good enough. You, and like just kind of pointing out negatively the behavior instead of the alternative, which is like asking for your needs, right? Hey, when you come home late, I feel hurt and I just feel like you don't care that much. And I know you do. So would you be willing to, shift that last appointment or something so that we can have dinner together, right? Totally different than you never come home on time. So that's like the anxiously attached. And those people are more likely to seek out help and healing. And so we kind of talk to those people mostly online because they're more motivated. But there's the avoidant, and the avoidant, they're afraid of the same kind of things. Honestly, at the core of it is the fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. But they cope with it in a different way. They're using more of like a shield rather than a sword to protect themselves. It's, I'm just not going to run the risk. I'm not going to let you get too close. And they'll avoid commitment. They want the connection, but they're fearful of the commitment because the commitment is vulnerable. It's scary. Or they're the type that will shut down in conflict when their anxious partner, because usually they're paired up together, when their anxious partner is kind of pursuing them with this criticism and kind of this hot energy, they're the ones who are like shutting down, going silent, going to the garage. The guy who's like, I don't know what you want me to say. I have nothing to say to you right now. And the anxious's mind is just blowing up at that point because they feel like their partner's abandoning them. They're just triggering each other, right?
Yes.
And I would say if there's a fear that's stronger in one or the other, the anxious are more afraid of abandonment. The avoidant are more afraid of rejection. And so when the anxious feels some sort of sense of abandonment, and they maybe get critical or they maybe pursue, all of the sudden the avoidant, that triggers them. Oh my gosh, like I'm just getting rejected right now. I'm being put on blast. She's telling me all the things I'm doing wrong and how horrible I am. So what am I going to do? I'm going to protect myself by shutting down, withdrawing, pulling back. And it's not a conscious choice. It's just something they've been doing since birth, right? Maybe they grew up in a home where they're like, hey, if you're going to cry, you need to go to your room, right?
It's a
Emotions
reflex.
weren't
Yeah.
really, yeah, they weren't really safe. And so
Yeah.
you can see how they trigger each other. And it's just this crazy little whirlwind because, that withdraw looks exactly like abandonment to the anxious.
So interesting. That is such a great description and way of thinking about it. So the other thing I want to talk about is you talk about how anxious attachment doesn't just affect relationships with others, but it actually
Yeah.
impacts how we relate to everything around us and our relationship with self. So maybe you can
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how does that show up in high functioning women?
Yeah, totally. Well, let's give it a framework here because it's easier to track for all of us. So there's a little tool that I'm going to give you, and if you're obviously if someone is listening and like driving and stuff, you may want to come back to this. But if you're in a spot where you can actually write this down, this can be quite literally life changing. This is one of the frameworks that we use in the Secure Self Club, which is like my program that we build specifically for helping people become secure. And it's one of the first things we do. And people always say, this was one of the most impactful tools. I used it the entire program and I kept coming back to it. And I'm just going to give it to you guys right now. So it's a acronym. It's tempo like the beat, which is pretty fitting because we're talking about a cycle that repeats just like a song or a dance. And tempo is an acronym, TEMPO. And we're going to use this acronym while filling in examples of let's say a high functioning woman. Okay. So I'm curious to ask you, what do you feel like would be a situation that would trigger some sort of anxiety in a high functioning woman? It trigger their insecurity, maybe negative beliefs about themselves. And I'll have you give me the trigger and then we'll work through it from there.
Yeah, so great example I think in the corporate world is maybe you're going for a promotion
Okay.
and you are anxious about getting that position. You're on the fence about whether or not to go for it. You're
Uh,
not selected. You don't have control over the outcome and now you're feeling rejected. I'm not good enough.
Okay, you're already filling in other parts of the cycle. I love this. So the T or the trigger is the moment where you don't get the job. Okay, so that's just a scenario. It's neither good nor bad. It's just something that happened. We haven't interpreted it yet, but the interpretation, the M and the E of this, they kind of happen at the same time. For sake of the order, let's talk about the E first. What do you feel like is the emotion that comes up when that person doesn't get the promotion? What, like, name emotion words that you would assume happen there?
Sad,
Sad.
sadness. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say defeat. I don't know if that's an emotion though.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah, a bit defeated or like deflated.
deflated,
Hopeless, maybe? I don't
hopeless.
know.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. I think you also mentioned anxious. So we've got like three, right? Sad, maybe a little bit hopeless, and anxious,
anxious.
maybe anxious about
Yeah.
the future and what's going to happen. So we've got the T and the E, and we're just mapping them out so far, just observing. Then the M is the meaning that you're making out of that situation. Because I didn't get the job, therefore, it either means something about me, about my future. And you started to even say this when you described it the first time. That's why I was like, oh, you're already doing it. What do you feel like the meaning a person would make in their head, a woman would make in her head when she doesn't get that job, when she's feeling that sadness, she's feeling that anxiety, that hopelessness? What's the story she's telling herself?
I'm not good enough.
I'm not good enough. Oh, yeah, what a powerful one, right? Totally rooted in this insecurity. I
Mhm.
am not good enough. But again, we don't know if that's true. Like, what the heck does that even mean? That's a pretty broad label. I'm not good enough for who? I'm not ready is totally different. But something about I'm not good enough is this broad, heavy label that, she's maybe feeling and leaning into. And maybe that is her default because growing up, she kind of didn't feel like she was good enough. Or she had somebody either overtly or covertly tell her that she was not good enough, right? This can even happen from, I don't know, like growing up in there's nothing wrong with this, but sometimes the way it affects us, depending on our teachers, it can have a big impact. But it might be even like growing up in a home or a religion that is pretty heavy on things like obedience. And it's like, oh, you got to be this certain way or else everyone is disappointed in you. Right. So we're another example. I'm just throwing it in there. So wherever it comes from, the default narrative is this kind of unrealistic belief, just this general label that I'm not good enough. Other things could be the meaning of I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to achieve this thing. I'm always going to be small in my roles. Like, there's all these things that could come up in your head. And I'm curious, at this point in the cycle, there is we're at the TEM. So M is for meaning, and then P. And P is the protection. We Protection is where we start to respond to the situation in a way that makes it worse. In my relationship, I stayed. I tried to be more for her. I tried to look down at the floor so she wouldn't get mad. I was cutting off friends. I was people pleasing. In dating outside of that relationship, I was always trying to be like the funniest guy in the room so that I could be recognized and loved. And it honestly just kind of made me look like I was trying too hard, and it wasn't very comfortable to be around that. It wasn't very confident. And so there's a negative response that might maybe creates more problems than it solves. And I want to ask, like, what do you feel like in our hypothetical? I feel like she needs a name, like the name of this person that we're talking about. Like, I don't know. What Jen? Okay, so Jen didn't get the
I'll let
job.
them.
She's
Yeah.
really afraid that she's never going to make it. She has these feelings of anxiety, sadness, hopelessness. She doesn't believe that she's good enough. And so she anxiously starts doing something. What does she start doing to protect herself?
Yeah. So I could take that in a couple different directions, but the first thing that comes up for me is the overfunctioning. I'm now working
Uh,
harder to prove myself. I'm going to work later hours. I'm going to volunteer for more opportunities. I'm going to show
uh,
them that
yeah,
I am worthy. So that's kind
yeah.
of the first thing, but I can definitely give you go different ways with that.
Okay, that's a great one. Let's use that for now, right? I'm going to show them that I'm worthy. And then the O is the outcome. And the outcome is a negative outcome. The overfunctioning or the protection creates. And again, I'm just going to keep letting you fill in the blanks because this is awesome. I've never done it this way on a podcast, and I'm really enjoying it.
I love it.
Hopefully you're
I love
liking
it.
it too.
Yeah,
But
awesome.
the O of the outcome, what happens then? Like what does it create for her?
Burnout.
Burnout.
It creates burnout, and then, ultimately this cycle, I think, where she thinks, "You know what? I'm not good enough, so I'm just not gonna apply for any more promotions." Right? She
Yeah.
goes from the high to the low.
Yeah, totally. That's one of the like infinite negative outcomes that could happen, right? So let's play out the full story for a minute. And the end of the story is the best part. It's the best and the worst part because it's like shocking how this cycle feeds itself and it
Yeah.
keeps getting worse unless we interrupt it. So Jen applies for the promotion, doesn't get it. She feels really anxious, feels hopeless, feels sad, and those aren't bad feelings to have, but those feelings are combined with this negative belief, this meaning that she's making, the M. And it's that I'm never going to make it. I am not good enough, those kind of things. And so, what does she do to protect herself? She doubles down, work, 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 volunteer, be the person who's the first one in the office and the last one to leave every single time. And the outcome is that she burns out. And because she's burnt out, she either gets hopeless, says, I'm so tired. I can't do this anymore. And she doesn't even apply for promotions in the future. And because she's not applying, she's not getting them, which in a sense is a new trigger. I'm keep getting passed up. I'm not good enough. It just creates another cycle. She goes back into it. Or she is applying, but she's spread so thin that she has diluted focus. And so she can't get the kind of results that the hiring manager or whoever it is looking for. And it's not
Absolutely.
because there's anything fundamentally wrong with her as a person. She's valuable, she's worthy, she's amazing. She doesn't know that because she's getting things conflated. She's just burnt out. And because she's not getting the job, boom, another cycle. She goes right back into it. If we take this same, so the principle here is the outcome or the O of the tempo cycle becomes the T for the next round. It becomes the new trigger. For me, it looked like, okay, early stages in this relationship, things are going wrong. Okay, I feel my protection is to ignore the red flags and just push in harder, try to please her, try to make her happy, which burns me out, which leads to more fights. The more fighting that happens, the more I try to be perfect. The more I try to be perfect, the more burnt out I get, the more I stay, the more I believe I can't find somebody who will love me, the more I stay. My beliefs, they just reinforce the cycle into a point where I am forced out of the cycle, slapped out of it. It's horrible conflict to the point where you're like, we weren't even married. She's trying to take me to court. Like it's just burning the house down, right? And so the key is we need to recognize the cycle and
Mhm.
learn how to break it before it gets to the point where the house burns down because you will eventually get forced out, right? You will eventually fully burn out of your career. Your relationship will end in flames, like whatever. We got to stop the cycle before it gets there. And the good news is we totally can. We totally can. You see how many points we can interrupt it at? Like we can work around the trigger. Maybe we need to do deep emotional work to help us reprogram ourselves so that when that trigger shows up, we don't really feel it anymore, or we learn how to cope with our emotions. So when the emotions show up, we can work through it there and exit the cycle. Or we look at actively rewriting the negative beliefs that we have, the meaning that we make, so that we don't lean into that. And if you still haven't stopped the cycle at that point, you can simply choose a different behavior. The P
Mm.
of protection, you can interrupt it there too, right? It's like you've got so many chances to interrupt it. And that's the hopeful news, right? It's not just all sad, like, oh, I get stuck in the cycle and it's horrible. It's like, no, 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 it's very hopeful. You can change this.
Thank you for sharing that framework, Trevor. That is incredible and life changing, I'm sure, for so many. So I appreciate you sharing that with us today. Definitely comes in handy. And I love that the way you're positioning it is it's not a one size fits all. Obviously, everyone's situation is unique and their circumstances are unique. So we can't get into, exactly what to do. But I love the fact that you're able to say, listen, there are different entry points in how we break that cycle and you get to pick. Yeah, I love to say in the work that I do, yeah, you might be the problem, but you're also the solution. right?
Uh,
So how do we break that cycle and really shift out of it?
Yeah, and part of breaking that cycle comes back to what I described. There's many methods, but one that we've already talked about was that kind of that inner child focused work.
Yeah.
A lot of that we do kind of like guided visualizations and guided work within our program, but it looks like accessing the part of you, and it's a part of you, it's not all of you, that part of you that believes others are going to leave or that you're not good enough or whatever else your negative beliefs you're holding on to, right? Kind of asking yourself, can I almost speak to that part of myself with kindness and compassion? What I did is I had a photo of the little me, little
Mm,
Trevor, on my mirror. I had a bunch of them actually. I put a whole bunch. I found them at
wow,
my mom's house, and I put them
that's
on my mirror,
powerful.
and I would talk to him out loud, and it doesn't matter if it's silly because a nobody's there. You're in your bathroom by yourself, like and and it doesn't matter if it's silly because it works. When you can access that as a part of you that you no longer shame, because oftentimes we shame, right? Oh, I can't believe that I'm so not confident or I'm so insecure. It's so stupid. It's silly. It's embarrassing. But when you stop that and you lean into, no, 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 that's just a part of me that needs to be loved. And I love that part of me and I care for them. Quite literally, we rewire parts of our brain into feeling more secure when we do that. And this is what a lot of psychology has missed for many years. There's been a lot of um, awareness in psychology. Let's talk about your past, let's understand it. And from
Mhm.
there, hopefully that gives you some clarity to move forward in a right way. But there hasn't been what we call a release component in psychology for a long time. A release component is where we access the actual emotion, not just a logical understanding of what happened to me, but we access the feelings. This might look like noticing the anxiety in your chest and kind of talking to it as if it is excuse me. This looks like noticing the oh man, I'm so sorry. My throat is just wrecked right now.
No problem. We'll wrap up in a minute.
Yeah. So it looks like accessing the emotion that you feel. Like when you feel the anxiety and you see it as this younger inner child that just needs to be loved and speaking to it with kindness. And that is the release where all of a sudden, oh, that feeling has somewhere to go instead of just dominating your life with anxiety.
Yeah. Holding it, suppressing it, and then inevitably it creeps back up, right? Love that. So powerful. Trevor, just before we wrap up, what would you say is the one shift that changed everything for you?
Well, the one shift that changed everything. It's not one that we actually have talked about here. Like I said, there's many ways of getting out of that cycle, but the one that helped me the most, and we talk about this a bit in the Secure Self Club too, is the idea that I am not in charge and I need to stop trying to control everything in my life and drive the bus. For me, there's a faith component there, right? And everybody has a different view on whatever their higher power might look like. Um, but, mine, I call God, mine, I call Jesus Christ. And my shift came when I truly believed that everything in my life happens for a reason and that is divinely guided by someone, a being that knows better than I do how things work. And I can just trust. I can trust and surrender and let go. And whether that's you trust the universe, whether that's trust God, like I don't care, plug in your own beliefs there. But it's this idea that was just amazing that filled me with so much courage and annihilated fear, not in a reckless way, where I'll just do anything and I don't care. But it's the belief that says, when I walk into this date, if it doesn't work out or she doesn't like me and I'm into her, that's okay because there's a bigger plan. And it's a bigger plan than I can see, and I'm going to trust and surrender. It's one that says, yeah, maybe you do need to break your jaw so you can be humbled, so you can slow down and listen more than talk. Like, let's wire your jaw shut. Stop talking, just listen. It's the idea that says you need to go through this horrible, traumatic relationship so that you can shift your career and become a therapist, become a coach, help people around the world. Because yeah, Tesla's cool, but it's not meant for you. So I'm going to force you out. All of those at the time felt devastating. But
Sure.
looking back, I realize, oh, they were 100% part of the plan. And when I started to really believe that, I just wasn't afraid anymore. The
Yeah.
insecurity went away. Get the job, don't get the job. Okay, that's fine. Whatever's supposed to happen will happen. I'm going to still do my best, right? It doesn't zap my motivation where I'm like, yeah, whatever happens, wherever the wind takes me. No, I'm a very driven person. I'm still driving towards what I hope for. But if what I hope for doesn't come true, then I can believe and trust that that's part of the process and it's okay, and that's what I needed. And so that was the belief or the principle that I think I'm still working on, right? Still trying to trust. There's times when I try to take control, take the steering wheel, drive my own life, and be like, no, 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 I have to protect everything. And that's when scarcity sets in and fear and insecurity. But I have to remind myself, oh, hold on, that's never how this works. So that was the biggest shift for me.
I think that's an incredible life lesson. And so many high achieving women that I work with are living or have lived that way, white knuckling our way through
Yeah,
life, trying to control the outcome on everything. So I love the
yeah,
shift of, what is the opposite of control to you look like, to your point?
yeah.
What is that for you, and exploring the other side of it. So that's great advice. Trevor, this has been such an amazing conversation. I want to thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story, your insights, and your expertise. Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, honestly, I always love to give things away. They say like this is the first time we met. Building, I love to build a relationship even through a podcast. And I say, if you liked what you heard here, there's two places you can go to get more good free stuff. One is you can just go to primarily Instagram. I mean, you can go on the other platforms too, but Instagram is where you find me, and my handle is at the Art of Healing by Trevor. Or you can also go to, there's like a free training and a free workshop where I talk about 4 essential elements that you need in your healing process if you actually want to become secure, if you want to get to the place that we're talking about today. And these are 4 things that if you're going to therapy, if you're listening to the podcasts, if you're reading the books, that I almost guarantee you're missing all 4 of them. If not at least one, but almost every single person I talk to says, wow, I don't have any of those. And that's why I'm stuck. And so I want to help you become unstuck and actually heal. So I can share the link with you, and you can also find it in my Instagram bio. It's all over the place. So there's a
Yeah,
couple
we'll post
options there.
we'll post it in the show notes. That's amazing. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here today, Trevor. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Now go make shift happen. Take care. All right, Shifter, that's a wrap on today's episode of What the Shift. But here's the thing, awareness is just the first step. The real shift happens when you decide to do something with it. So before you go back to business as usual, ask yourself, what is one thing you are done carrying? What's one shift you're ready to make? And if this episode hit home, don't keep it to yourself. Hit subscribe, leave a review, and send it to a woman who needs to hear this, because we shift together. Remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to take the next step. And I'll be right here next week, ready to shift with you. This is What the Shift, and we are just getting started.